Cognitive versus emotional gratitude. I've made this video of my face especially large because I'm going to tell a story about how I went through my experience the first time I induced gratitude in this holistic way. So I talked about it a little bit earlier. If you've watched my TED Talk, you might have heard a little bit of this, but when I first retired, I wanted to write a book on holistic high performance. I wanted to help athletes basically find the most effective ways to increase their training. And so I was going through all my notes over the years, trying to put together what I thought would be the most useful to share, the most effective, and to basically help people stop throwing things at the wall and see what stuck and having to waste a bunch of time. So I went on something called an input diet. That was an inspiration from the book The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And it's the idea that if we stop taking in so much information, then we can start putting out more information in a more organized fashion because we understand what is inside. And we stop being in input mode, we start being in output mode. So I stopped listening to podcasts, watching TV. I saw very few people. I stopped reading books, and I just started organizing all of my thoughts. And this really created a very drastic shift, and I think what really contributed to me having this epiphany. But after a couple of months, I decided to go to a cabin in the woods for a week and to just go, write, think, and not be distracted by the things in my house. And 2 days into writing, I felt like I'd done a ton of work and I needed a break. So I thought, I'm going to meditate before I do a little bit of yoga and stretch and go to sleep. And I hadn't done a gratitude meditation in a long time, since probably 2018 when I'd done a 10-day silent meditation retreat and they taught us how to do a metta meditation. If you want to look that up, it's called a Vipassana retreat. I'll be in the links. And from here, I thought, great, I'll do this metta meditation. And I started thinking about all the things I was grateful for. And because I've been writing so much, I've been thinking about definitions and been using different types of words very specifically. I've been looking them up. And I realized that I didn't know what the definition of gratitude was. I thought, that's a little embarrassing. I've been doing gratitude journals for years. And so we had this definition. Gratitude is the feeling of receiving a gift, which could be a favor, a lesson, or an opportunity from the universe, from another person, from God, from nature. But it's the idea that a gift is something that you think, for me, I did nothing to deserve this. And it just came my way. And when I started to really think about this definition more deeply and all the other definitions of gratitude that we went through earlier in the modules of this course, and I started to actually think of everything I was grateful for, it put a very different tinge on it. And I started to feel really different in the way that I think I'm not just grateful for my parents. I think I am grateful for my parents because they're such wonderful human beings who have spent so much time and energy raising me, gave me a wonderful childhood, and we love to hang out together, and that's a pretty special thing. And when you think about this and you build out this picture, it really starts to make you feel a different way because there's a bit of a story to it. And as I was sitting there, I realized that in telling myself a story, I was no longer just experiencing gratitude as a concept, like, I'm grateful for my parents, I'm grateful for the coffee in my cup, I'm grateful for a healthy body. Because when we practice gratitude too fast, it remains cognitive. Now I say cognitive gratitude, but it can also be conceptual gratitude. And it's this thing where when we practice too quickly, when we speak quickly, or when we say a bunch of things very quickly, we understand it as a concept, but we don't feel the emotion. It lacks depth. And what happens is that our brain doesn't process things emotionally as quickly as we process them mentally. We require a pause. And this is actually a trick for public speaking. And it's like science-backed trick that if you want someone to remember what you said, you pause to let it sink in emotionally. And it doesn't take that long to do it, but it is a very effective strategy. And what we are doing here in identifying the type of gratitude, in understanding the depths, the nuances, and creating a little bit of a story that creates, again, a story really elicits emotions with us. It allows us to bask in the feeling and create a visualization of sorts. It allows our brain to register this concept more deeply and to embody it. So I like to say it's like a frog jumping on lily pads and never diving into water. That's what cognitive gratitude is like. And when we start practicing emotional gratitude, then what happens is we start to actually physically feel it in our bodies. We might even smile. That's muscles in your face creating a certain move. Gratitude is often felt in our chest or in our gut. And when we start noticing that we physically feel different in response to an idea or a story, then we are bringing the body into the loop. We are bringing all of our sensations online. It's not just a thought, we are getting an emotional response and a physical response. And this creates a multi-sensory experience, which creates a more complete experience of gratitude and allows you to start entering the upward spiral.